To my final story. In Washington this week, President Trump called for a peace deal in Ukraine, urging both sides to show what he described as flexibility. But with no breakthrough yet, Kyiv is looking beyond the negotiating table and turning to Africa to strengthen its hand. Ukraine has opened new embassies, expanded food aid, and even offered military training to its Mauritania counterparts as part of its outreach. Yet, Russia's deep-rooted influence from across the continent in energy and security, and all of that in between, means Ukraine faces a steep challenge in winning new allies. What impact could this have on the global balance of power and on Trump's push for peace? This is what I discussed with Africa analyst Thamsanqa Zhou. Thamsanqa Zhou, it's been such a long time. I'm so happy to have you here. Who better on the continent to try and unravel what's been going on over the past couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months, but specifically this week. I was just joking with you off air that in Washington, that table of the coalition of the willing plus Trump's top team was as white as snow. And I'm not saying that in a kind of racial disparaging way. It was as white as it can be. Some political elites in Africa say, look, that's great. It's not our war, but it is, Tam. Please just unpack what's gone on, first of all, in a kind of global geopolitical way, but then, of course, how it pertains to our continent, Africa.
Yeah, it's always good to come by and have a chat when I get to London and we discuss that. But of course, even here in the United Kingdom, it's not so long ago that you had an Asian prime minister, and then
we do have a black deputy,
and then a black first minister in Wales, and there's Scotland as well, and of course somebody who is Irish in Northern Ireland. So whenever there is representation on a global scale, members of the G7 in particular, there is an understanding that they have diplomatic and other relations with many other countries in the Asian side, but as well as
and
Africa.
The Commonwealth.
So Africa was as well represented at that table as the interest of Africa. Remember, President Ramaphosa was there, and in South Africa,
yes,
in South Africa, Ukraine has been, discussing with South Africa. That's where the African element has been coming in. Moscow has been discussing with South Africa as well. So you can read that if you like. But the interests of Africa are closely intertwined to what we are seeing going on in Alaska, in Washington, and wherever the venue is going to be for the next summit.
Absolutely. It's probably going to be a couple of stones throws behind us. Let's talk about optics, though. Optics is really important. You're absolutely right. We do know that underground, of course, there's loads of diplomacy taking place, lots of foreign trips between Eastern Europe and Africa over the past couple of years. But optics is important. We know that. We're media people, right? You want to be seen in the picture. We're just so far away from the main action now. Should we be worried or concerned about that?
Not at all. The reason for that is because if the war between Russia and Ukraine stops, remember, both Russia... If because there are so many dynamics. We need to get to that. There are things that Russia is asking for. That is the guarantee of the probably sovereignty, if you or maybe, I don't know how to put it. I need to be careful in the language. The right to self-determination of Russian-speaking populations who are within the borders of Ukraine.
I thought that was quite interesting, yes.
So Russia is basically demanding that. They are saying the borders of those areas where people who are of Russian-speaking descent are living, they want to be in control or at least have authority over that, or at least to supervise a self-determination process for them. Ukraine, of course, will say no to that. But also remember, even President Zelensky himself is Russian-speaking. He had to work very hard to almost always speak in Ukrainian to be accepted the other way. So he knows that after this war is ended, there's no guarantee that he will win the next election if he participates. And then what becomes of him? So there are so many dynamics. President Trump just wants the war to stop. Economically, America is spending quite a lot of money to sustain this war. And so he wants to pull that back. Of course, he also wants to
win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to? He has already stopped.
According to him, he stopped 6 wars.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, America has leveraged its power, economic power, its military power, its global dominance to stop those wars, to basically say, if you are Thailand or you are Rwanda or DRC or you are Pakistan or India or whatever, then the Americans can cut away their economic influence in that region or in your country, and your country will collapse.
Yeah.
And if your country collapses, then it can't wage a war. So he had that authority to be able to do that. It's more difficult with this one. He has leverage over Ukraine, but he is pushing all these other things to Russia to say an economic power in Russia will only be sustained if there is America on the table, there's China, there's India, there's others. So if the Americans are in good books with the Russians, that saves money in terms of the budget in America, but it also helps Russia. So Russia will be happier with that. But Ukraine is difficult to see what they will get out of it, rather than ceding some territory.
You were on the continent a couple of days ago. What's the mood music like there? Are people talking about the war? Do they care as much as perhaps those of us in the diaspora that can't get away from it?
People care. But people care on two fronts. Number one, those that are in government and on maybe what you can say the elite, those that are discussing things as they are going on.
The decision makers.
They say that cutting Russia off disadvantages Africa.
Absolutely.
Because Russia has historical ties to military assistance as well as mining and other areas. But also the American influence is needed. America has been assisting Africa in terms of aid, in terms of the economy, and in
stability.
Terms of the diaspora. Most people don't like to see their visas being refused if they have to go to America, because there's so many people in America. Nigeria in particular, there's so much diaspora in the US, and they don't want visas from Lagos to be, from Abuja to be stopped.
Which is already a dicey topic.
That's on one end. The second end is watching the spectacle. To say, look, if President Trump and President Putin can shake hands and be together in one place, why can't PDP, APC, or other people in Cote d'Ivoire, why can't Ouattara and Laurent Gbagbo, why can't
Rwanda,
people in Rwanda, why should we spill blood because of politics within nations if the American president and the Russian president can shake hands on a red carpet? So there are things like that people are saying, hang on a minute, this is political maturity. Why can't we put our differences apart and say it is the nation first, it is Nigeria first, it is Ghana first? So why should we be chasing each other? Why can't it just be South Africa first, where President Zuma and President Ramaphosa can just be together, where Tshisekedi and President Kabila can be together in the DRC, or any other country.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there we saw them in Rome.
Why can't they just why can't it be a weekly thing where in Nigeria, President Tinubu can be bringing all these former presidential candidates to Asarok every week to just say, let's talk about what you are hearing.
Well, let's see if Trump can get Zelensky and Putin in the same room.
Well, that has already happened.
But we don't know. We don't know.
No. I mean, in the past. Remember,
in the past, but we don't know if Putin wants to legitimize Zelensky.
That will happen. That will happen. There's no doubt about that.
Let's see. Let me ask you, because again, you were away, Tam, so you weren't watching. I presume you weren't consuming 24-hour global North media, but at times I wanted to punch the screen. I'm like, no, why are you so against peace? When Putin got off the plane, the way Trump and Putin embraced each other, of course, they got a couple of minutes of alone time in the Beast before getting to the venue where they delivered that pretty extraordinary newser. It seems as if the fourth pillar of society were totally against that meeting. Why?
In a way, it is... it is time for the media, global media, mainstream media in particular, not so much the social media, but mainstream media in particular. The credibility,
legacy media.
Right, yeah, the credibility of the mainstream media to parrot the particular political points dividing the global ionosphere, if you like, whenever there's a war, whenever there's conflict, is probably not the right thing to do. So you have seen that with what's happening with
the Middle
Israel and in the Middle East. So once you take a particular point, it becomes difficult for you
to
as
shift
media
the dial.
to then shift that down. If you portray one side of a conflict you don't understand fully as evil, the devil that must never be spoken about, who must be hanged, who must be done this, either side, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's what they're doing. Well, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, once you do that, it then becomes difficult to justify why you have to say these two presidents are shaking hands, or these two communities are now working together.
Well, there could be something good that can come from this.
We know that historically, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about Northern Ireland or you are talking about the several
or
issues.
Palestine.
Yeah, or, even in Nigeria in the old past, people that are Igbo, interacting with President Buhari and working together.
Yeah.
It just doesn't matter. People always come together anyway at some point, which is why those that believe in diplomacy who say, why are we chucking away the United Nations? When things are like this, where is Secretary General Guterres? Where are the people that should have been pulling the triggers of the diplomatic engagements, bringing everyone together? Why should it be Qatar? Why should it be the United Arab Emirates? Why should it be somebody else who is now the de facto UN in these kind of environments?
Isn't that an opportunity then for Africa now?
It is in a way, but
are we too scared? Are we scared of the tariffs? Are we scared of the visa rejections? Are we scared of Trump?
No, but Africa can assert itself because there is so much not yet. But I would say that that time is coming. So if you look at,
we need more Mia Motley's, don't we? Asian Prime Minister.
She could be the next UN Secretary General, for all we know.
Yeah.
But I think what Africa needs to do is basically to have an assertive message out there to say, okay, Europe, you are France, you are Paris, you are London, you are Berlin or Washington, DC, or whatever.
London.
But these are the things that you need from Africa to sustain your economies. This is what we want. And President Trump, remember, he likes very strong leaders. We have authority. The reason why he can deal with President Putin is because he knows that if President Putin gives his word, that's exactly what he's going to happen.
Allegedly it's because he's got something against him. I don't believe that too, but that's what the mainstream media